The debate over healthcare policy remains the name of the game in Congress as the government shutdown enters day 27, but no one seems to be losing any sleep over it. Joining me now is co-host of the Ruthless Podcast, John Ashbrook. And John, thank you for coming on Perino on Politics. This is, of course, where I call my smart friends and say, what's going on in politics? What do I need to know? You're down there in the Virginia, D.C. area. What about the shutdown? I will tell you, I've not been asked about the shutdown by any friend, any colleague, anything for the last 27 days. It might be different for you.
Well, I don't think what you've experienced on shutdown is any different from anybody else who's living outside of the Beltway. Inside of the Beltway, of course, it's a different matter. It's a huge guessing game on when the shutdown might end. Is it after Election Day? Is it after some of these benefits for SNAP go out on November 1st? Is it Thanksgiving Day? It's really hard to tell. There's only one group of people who know the answer to the question. It's Senate Democrats. They've voted against keeping the government open 12 times now. And simply, this is a document that is a budget that Joe Biden and Democrats wrote. And all Republicans want to do is change the date so that the government can open. Democrats have voted 12 times against that. And if I can just give you some details on this, Dana, I know you're a detail-oriented person. The first thing I learned when I was a House press secretary and you were working in the White House is that Tony Snow is a great guy. He puts on a great show at the podium, but if you want the details, you have to call Dana Perino. So this is my attempt to give you.
That was so funny. Like Tony Snow had such great big thoughts, and I always tell people he studied. He was a philosophy major and a math minor. And he was a beautiful writer. The combination was incredible. But sometimes when he was at the podium and I was sitting on the side, he would be saying something and the reporters would look at me and I would just give a little nod of the head, or I'd be like, no, see me later.
Yeah, exactly. And then so you have a whole generation of press secretaries who grew up trying to figure out how to be like Dana Perino. So, that exists. It's out there. So let me give you my best guess on the details here. So there are 54 votes in the Senate to reopen the government on this clean CR budget, and you need 6 more Democrats. The federal employees union came out with a statement last night calling for a clean CR to pass. And so you've got to think that maybe the 4 senators from 2 Democrats from Virginia, 2 Democrats from Maryland could go into the yes column with that sort of pressure from the federal employees union. And then there are a couple of other Democrats like Gary Peters from Michigan and maybe John Ossoff, who's in cycle in Georgia, who would come to the table and vote yes to keep the government or to reopen the government.
All of that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
And we should mention for people who might not know, the union of federal employees, that's a fairly reliable Democratic organization.
Oh, hugely reliable Democrat organization. They put so much pressure on Dems. And that's why I think some of these rank and file Dems who haven't voted yes so far are going to vote yes in the coming weeks. The one guy whose name I didn't mention, Chuck Schumer. And why is Chuck Schumer's name not even in consideration? Because he is scared to death of AOC and what he's seeing happen in this New York City mayor's race with Mamdani. He doesn't know what to do. He's quite literally worried about his career.
So I'm going to do a little backup and then a lead up to what I want you to talk about next. And that has to do with Chuck Schumer, AOC, and this mayor's race here and why it matters nationally. And I can understand some frustration from people who might watch Fox News and say, why are we hearing so much about Zohran Mamdani, even though it's fascinating? And I think the reason is because these young progressives are coming to a city near you. There's one in Minneapolis, there's one in Seattle, there might be more, but they are likely to win this year, and it will matter for all of us. So to back up, Chuck Schumer last March voted for this continuing resolution to keep the government funded.
Right.
And there was an uproar on the activist left. And those people said, you never fight against Trump. And there was a suggestion that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez might primary him next year. So you'd have a generational intra-party argument in which AOC proves she can get a crowd, she can raise money, and she can get enthusiasm behind her. So now that when it came up again, as the cycle is closer to the 2026 midterms, now you have Chuck Schumer saying, I will fight this time. So to your point, will the union saying, we want you to pass a clean CR, give him the leeway to give those Democrats you mentioned permission to vote with the Republicans and get the government back open? I don't know. But talk about this. Over the weekend, there was a rally here in New York. It was a stadium that held about 13,000 people, according to my colleague, Bill Hemmer. It was full. It was organized. It was a huge rally. And Zohran Mamdani was there, flanked by Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The momentum is there. Zohran Mamdani wasn't the shucks, cheerful guy anymore. He was back to being radicalist. And I don't know if that's because he's feeling pressure or because he's feeling confident. But there is an energy on the left that cannot be matched by some of these guys like Cuomo, who doesn't really seem to have it in him.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right, Dana, and it is happening all over the country. And I would guess that he is talking like a radical again because he's confident. Because he knows that that's getting attention, and he knows, he's seen the numbers. He's seen, like, Hakeem Jeffries is now in his camp as opposed to Cuomo's. There are so many Democrats who are coming out of the woodwork, like Pete Buttigieg, for example. This guy, wants to run for president. He is saying, like, Cuomo bad, Mamdani good. So Democrats are in an absolute civil war, and they have been for a few months. And on the Ruthless Variety program, we are doing continuing coverage of the Democrat Civil War. You've got 4 war correspondents who are happy to talk about it because every Democrat and every member of the legacy media spent a lot of time talking about the Republican Civil War just 10 years ago. But Democrats are locked in this fight. And what you said that is so smart is happening in all of these cities around the country. It's happening in some statewide races, too, like in Maine, where you've got a Democrat establishment governor who is facing a primary from this Bernie Sanders supported lunatic named Graham Plattner, who had, a Nazi tattoo. And there's been all this controversy, but he still has a lead, or they're tied. And so it's actually happening where Democrats in these cities, Democrats in these states who are your typical establishment, normal Democrats are being overrun by these radicals. And it's going to have an impact on everybody because anything that pulls Democrats further to the left means that their party is going to be represented by people who are chasing that. Pete Buttigieg is a perfect example of that. Here's this guy who tries to present up as a moderate. Oh, I was a mayor of South Bend. Oh, I moved to Michigan. Oh, I'm just like an everyman normie Democrat. And yet he is saying, oh, no, Mamdani is where we need to go. So even the establishment type Democrats chasing this, that's what you need to watch. And that's how their party is moving and not good.
So a couple of things just on this one specific issue. In the rally last night, Mamdani goes after Cuomo and says, you're just sitting there comfortable in your $8,000 a month apartment. Now, Cuomo is an adult. He has made money. The city is expensive. He chooses to pay $8,000 a month. You could choose something else. Mamdani is a wealthy person who married an even wealthier person, and they have chosen to live in a rent-stabilized apartment that could be available for somebody else, but he chooses not to. In Seattle, this woman, Katie Wilson, she's 40. She grew up in upstate New York at Binghamton. Her parents were both evolutionary biology professors, but like an upper middle class or middle class, upper middle class situation. She traveled around on a Greyhound bus to figure out where she wanted to live and go to school. She settles in Washington State. She and her husband, she's now 40, have chosen to live in a 600 square foot rental in Seattle with their 2-year-old daughter. And she's going after the other Democrat who is considered an establishment guy. But this is a guy who is an immigrant, who overcame great odds. He became a lawyer, a businessman, built himself up, and has a $1.4 million house in Seattle, which was pretty expensive in the inner city there where he lives. But he's looking around saying, wait, wasn't I going to be the American dream? Wasn't I the goal? Mm-hmm. Is the goal to live where you could live in a different situation, but you have chosen something else? Now, there's nothing wrong with the 600 square foot apartment, but to go after the person who has chosen to a different path and to spend his hard-earned money in a different way, I'm seeing a pattern here, and I'm thinking this probably is not good for Democrats long term, but I have a concern. And that is, are Republicans able to make the case persuasively that their policies would lead to a better future for these young people?
Well, I think, look, that making the case that policies that affect younger people who are having a hard time affording a home, not really seeing the American dream the way that maybe it was pictured 20 years ago, that's where the future is. But the people who will not be able to make that case persuasively are the people who are inauthentic about the way they're living their lives. And Democrats, especially the hard left Democrats right now, are as inauthentic as anybody in politics. The other guy I mentioned, Graham Plattner, who is running for Senate in Maine, this guy went to a boarding school. This guy, his father was the attorney for a billionaire. Jasmine Crockett, who is this congresswoman from Texas, she went to one of the most expensive high schools in St. Louis. These Democrats, they are full of people who are inauthentic, who are just pretending to be working class types and, oh, just because I'm making these moves and living out this theater, like then people will believe. People see through that. People see through that every day. I mean, they see like the most important thing in politics, as is developed like over the last 20 years. The most important thing is authenticity. It really is. I mean, there's nothing more important than that. And so, like, people will see through these Democrats. There's so many of them are just theater kids. They're acting something out, and sure, they're going to get the enthusiasm of the Dem base to support them because the Dem base wants that to be true. But those voters in the middle, those Trump voters, those people who voted for Democrats in the mid 2000s and early 2010s that then moved over to Trump, those people are looking for authenticity. That's what they got with Trump. That's why they liked him so much.
So a last question about authenticity and the Democrats. Over the weekend, you had both Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom not deny that they were thinking of running for president in 2028. They didn't declare anything, but Yemisi Egbawole, who's been on this program before, she worked in the Biden White House, very straight shooter. She was just on Newsroom and said they don't have the authenticity that is necessary to do that. And I'll get your final thought on that before we take a quick break.
Yeah, no, she's very smart. I mean, she is a very smart operator. She is very smart to point that out, and she's exactly right. I mean, they have Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom are. Gavin Newsom is trying to act like he's trying to act authentic. He's trying to say, things that are outrageous and hopes that people will hear the outrageous thing and think, oh, just because he says the F word 7 times, that means he's authentic. People see through that, too. Let's
talk a little bit about President Trump. He is on a foreign policy trip. Had some fun when he landed in Malaysia yesterday, with the time change. I don't know what time it was, but he landed and there was a welcome ceremony. I'd seen it before with President Bush in Africa.
That was a great moment.
When a commander-in-chief lands in a country where they're excited to have you and they're having a ceremony and they participate with a little dance and a little movement, it will endear that person to the citizenry of that country for the rest of their lives. They'll never stop talking about it. He did look like he was having a good time.
Yeah, he really did. And I mean, he was actually making great progress there, too. I mean, the peace deal between Cambodia and Thailand, that's something that the UN couldn't achieve. And President Trump was there with them. And this guy, I think he's defying expectations of even Republicans had for him at the beginning of this term. And he's just changing the game a little bit in foreign policy. And, I loved seeing the dance that you're talking about. It reminded me of the exact same thing with President George W. Bush in Africa. And I think that Trump does not take himself so seriously. He's willing to he's willing
the
to be a
Democrats
part of
take
it.
him very, very seriously.
Right.
But
Well,
he can have fun, and he does seem to have tireless energy. The trips to
does.
Asia knocked me out. I could
believe
travel
that.
Europe, no problem. I always bounce back very quickly. Asian trips were very difficult for me, but they seem to be fine.
yeah, well, he seems to be fine. I don't know about the rest of the staff's probably like dragging right now, but
Well, and
he
they
is,
announced that there's a possibility that they could possibly have a Trump-Xi trade deal, which I got to look at the details.
Yeah.
But even if there's a framework for cooperation, it's better than being at each other's throats.
It's true, and what fascinates me is the way that Trump is approaching this meeting with Xi at the end of the week. He's meeting with all of these countries in Asia around China, and he's building these agreements and building these trade deals. He's in Tokyo, so that when he goes to China, he's got all of the other surrounding countries as part of his momentum to take into that meeting. I mean, it's a really interesting approach to negotiation, but of course, this is a guy who understands negotiate. He's got intuitive sense for how to make a deal.
And also, I think that if you look at Bessent, Rubio, Hegseth, Susie Wiles, but like they're the main team.
right,
12 days ago, President Trump met with the Argentinian president, Milei, and agreed that America would help out because Milei is trying to get that Argentinian economy back on track. But then you read that people were upset about it. And even me, I was like, wait, why are we doing this again? But then the strategery behind it is very interesting because China has made so many inroads in South America.
right,
That's a problem.
right.
What President Trump is trying to do through his team is to change that equation. And what happened overnight? Well, Milei, who was up against some pretty tough opposition when it came to, or headwinds, I should say, in Argentina for the midterm elections, like our midterms, he won overwhelmingly. So President Trump was able to give a push and a little bit of help. And even while some Americans, maybe even farmers, would say, why are we doing this? You look back at the strategy and you can see what they were trying to do.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different approach than what, Washington has grown accustomed to over the last 20 years, but it seems to be working. I mean, he definitely understands negotiations in a way that only a person who has his background could. I mean, who in the world would have thought that a career in New York real estate makes you the right person to start trying to broker world peace around the world? But that's what's happening, and it's fascinating to watch. And I think that who knows what's going to happen at this meeting with China. There's a lot on the table. Fentanyl is a big part of that. The Chinese have been pushing fentanyl through our southern border for a very long time, and he's working to put a stop to that. And so many issues on the agenda, and I've got confidence that he is going in with a head of steam and will come out with most of what he wants.
So my favorite phrase, we'll see.
Right.
We pay attention. And that's why we keep coming back every day to work and to Perino on politics and to the Ruthless Variety Show. What are you paying attention to right now?
Well, I mean, honestly, Dem Civil War is exactly what we've been talking about over and over on the show. But Dana, if I could say one thing about what we should be talking, I really think, and I mentioned this, we had Brett Baer on the show earlier.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think that I think we need to do more shows like out in the country, out in small towns, and not just at a diner, not just at like a manufacturing facility, but there's so much happening in small towns around the country that can really tell you where America is headed before Washington ever picks up on it. I know because, I talk to my friends, I talk to my family back home in Ohio all the time. The other co-hosts were all sort of Midwestern, and one guy from North Carolina, always talking to friends and family. And you always hear things that then like 2-3 weeks later seem to emerge in Washington. So finding those stories out in the country in small towns,
I agree,
I think are crucial.
Do you know, back when O'Reilly had his tours that he would do, like the tours with Dennis Miller?
Yeah.
If you go back and you look at the cities and towns that they went to and the theaters that they went to, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's not necessarily, Denver, but it's Rapid City.
Yeah.
right? It might not be Omaha, but it might be, I'm trying to think of another Lincoln.
Yeah.
And maybe not, because Lincoln's a pretty Democrat area. Well, maybe not anymore. What am I saying? Anyway, I hear your point, and that's why I always try to say to people when I'm on air that the Zohran Mamdani thing might seem like the New Yorkers are crazy and who cares what happens to New York, and everybody who lives there is crazy anyway for choosing to live there or having to live there because of their work. But there's a movement afoot, and what I'm paying attention to is not only what they're doing, but how the Republicans are responding. Because to me, it's not quite hitting yet. But it's going to have to. So someone will emerge that will be able to talk about that. All right. Well, anything else going on?
I mean, the
Bengals. Do you want to talk about it?
I hope you took it easy on poor Hemmer this morning.
Bill Hemmer today, he was actually handling it pretty well. That the Bengals lost to the Jets. That one hurt.
Yeah, that was a really rough game. And I mean, I'm a lifetime Bengals fan too, and very familiar with them losing. And I just hope that we can rebuild the defense in the offseason.
That's what he just said. But I'll tell you, it's fun to be a Broncos fan again.
Yeah. Oh, they're playing really well. I mean, maybe the best defense in the NFL, and Bo Nix seems like he's coming online at the right time.
All right. Well, that's Perino on politics and Dana Reed Sports all in one. John Ashbrook, thank you.
Thank you.